Benson Gethenji is a mechanic in Nyeri County and is 22 years old. He says he became a street boy after his parents' divorce and he got into drug abuse. His story lends to the matter before this honorable court. Philip Towet is a teacher and a former official in the county government of Nandi. The PWD welfare champion says he has been sidelined on gender basis and speaks to the issues of the boy child. Evans Muhunya is an educationist and he's been a teacher for over 15 years. He says that during his interactions with his students, he has seen boy-child concerns manifesting. Dorothy Otieno is the project coordinator for women's leadership at Femnet. She is a feminist and a gender equality champion and lends her perspective to this court. Dr. Joyce Mutinda is the chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission. She is an educationist and gender analyst and has served on various boards. She is also a youth mentor and makes submissions to this honorable court.
My lords, ladyships, court is in session. Justice Wanjiko, the people of the Republic of Kenya presiding, and boy, do we have a session for you. Boy here being a deliberate reference. Now, over the years, there has been a lot of championing for the girl child, owing to years and decades of being viewed, treated, and considered as a less deserving gender by many in the society, denying her of rights and privileges. This affirmative action has borne fruit, as we see many women in places and positions of influence, as well as just seeing many girls having access to what their older counterparts were denied in years gone by. Well, every rose has a thorn, they say. This argument here is that one of the pricking thorns in this rosy situation is that the boy child has been neglected to a concerning extent amid the clamor for a more empowered girl child. He has been excluded from the gender agenda. Some argue that this is not the case. Has the country been unable to walk and chew gum? Let's prosecute. We begin with some context as it stands on the ground.
Justice Wanjiko, the experience of some men in the matter before you is quite telling and could paint a picture of the concerns raised before this court.
It was not easy in the job market. I want to say, as I grew up, at times you could find a lot of challenge as a man. Part of some other jobs which was arising, like I remember a time when we were just seeking for this employment of electoral, by then it was an electoral commission. It was hell because you find within the number that we applied, majority of those who were girl child were taken and the boys were left out. And this has been a big challenge. Gender-based violence has always been associated with a girl that is the one who has been abused. But I want to say part of the committing of suicide in many boys that are coming up and men are the gender-based violence that they are encountering that they cannot be able to share it anymore. Because men are expected to just be a man. They are told as a man, you need to stand in. But many pass through a gender-based violence that you cannot be able to share. And the next thing you find a man has committed suicide. A boy child, the families, for a family to stand is a man. And that is why if the boy child is not empowered, we don't have a society. We need to empower this boy child, and from an empowered boy child, that is when we can be able to have a country.
Nothing further from me, my lords and ladyships. I rest.
Justice Wanjiko, the situation with the boy child as it stands has been linked to social ills. We get our next submissions in line with this.
Nilijipatanga tao kwa sababu ya divorce ya wazazi wangu. Maisha tao ilikuwa mbaya juu kila wakati polisi anakukuta, hata kama si polisi watu wengine bado wanakudhiritan huko tao. So life ilikuwa too hard. Nikiwa tao nilikuwa navuta gum, natumia kitu kama bangi na madawa zingine. Lakini yote nilikuja kuacha. Nikapatana na mwalimu anaitwa Joel Kariuki, akanisupport nikakuja huku garage. Sasa niko na course na huwa najimundu na kufanya kazi ya kutengeneza magari. Hivi venye huwa sisi tunaishi, kipatana tu na msee tao, anaweza kuwa ameingia juu ya shida ama kitu yoyote, lakini si kila mtu atupenda kuwa huko.
Justice Wanjiko, Your Honor, these are human faces and experiences. But what does data point us to?
The National Gender and Equality Commission's Status of the Boy Child report in 2015 looked into questions on, is the boy child lagging behind? The perception survey showed that 92% of the respondents agreed, while 8% disagreed. And those who agreed said it was because there has been over-focus on the girl child by the government and non-governmental organizations in terms of programs and interventions to empower the girl child. The report also lists factors leading to exclusion of the boy child. One is family-related issues, for instance, absent or alcoholic fathers, meaning the boys lack role models and parental guidance. Also, in cases of divorce, some boys take the role of a man at home and hence drop out of school. Another factor is drug and substance abuse, and the boys are the most affected, having been introduced to substances at early ages. Peer pressure is also a factor, where we see boys dropping out of school. Some engage in economic activities like their friends, others get influenced into drug and alcohol abuse or criminal activities and illicit sex. Another factor is early marriages. For instance, in Kilifi, the survey found boys are forced to marry a girl they impregnate, regardless of their age. Also, in the case of orphans, the older boy is expected to start a family and take care of his siblings in some counties. Cultural beliefs and practices are also a factor, and a lot of responsibilities placed on the boy child at an early age. Traditional society perceives an 8 to 10-year-old boy to be a man and expect contribution to household needs. Another factor is changes in societal norms and values. The study indicates that society has shifted towards individualism, and many adults will watch a boy go wayward and do nothing about it. One other factor is poverty, and with it comes the pressure to provide for the boy. According to children's officers in counties where there's an option of adoption, most people prefer to adopt girls rather than boys, and this denies the boy child an opportunity of being brought up in homes under the care of family, and many end up in charitable children's institutions, CCIs.
This court now invites Helen Aura to make her submissions.
My lords and ladyships, they are people who interact with the boy and girl child alike, and from their viewpoint, they can give further insight. First, we hear from an educationist. This court now invites Evans Muhunya to take the talk. Evans Muhunya, there have been allegations that the boy child has been neglected. As an educationist, what is your take on this?
Let's look at the family perspective. When a family gets together, a son and a daughter is born. They're supposed to be raised together. But whenever a divorce occurs or there is a family feud that leads to separation, the children always go with the mother. And therefore, the boy lacks someone where the mother is to mentor. Yes, there has been some expectations from the society that we do give a father figure to the mother. However, look at this perspective. Men, and I speak as a man, when you receive a woman in a relationship who has a son, you tend to have issues with that son compared to the daughter, because the son is there to stay. The daughter will walk away soon. So this boy has a problem of having a father figure. He cannot go to the father where there is a relationship, a new relationship, or stay at the mother and get the ultimate love. That has been one of the challenges. During family issues, the boy child suffers more than the girl child. Secondly, when you look at the substances of drug abuse, every time a young man has an issue, he's told, be a man. A man means you handle it without speaking. And this leads them to trust their peers, who easily lure them into abusing substances, into taking drugs, to ignore. Another reason why I feel challenges facing a boy child in this country is the level of poverty. You visit some of these rural areas, and a boy takes up the responsibility of a man, regardless of the age. And this has affected, so that the boy does not go on to pursue and achieve his dream. No one will listen to the boy. Educational institutions, boys are always bullied, but they don't speak. Why don't they speak? Because we don't listen to them. We don't hear them. We ignore. When you walk into an office today and a girl comes up being bullied, everybody will stand up and listen. But when a boy walks in, he's told, be a man and deal with it.
With this crop of generation of boys that we are seeing now, do they take up leadership positions, or are they confident, or do they lack confidence within class?
If you walk into a classroom scenario today and ask a question, when 5 hands are up, 4 are from girls. There is a belief among boys that has already been encrypted into their hearts that no matter what they speak, no one is going to listen.
What can we do to change the narrative? Is there any solution?
So we have an open platform where they can communicate and no one will know who has said this, because they are always tagged a woman if they openly communicate. The second thing we've done is to empower parents. We have a parental empowerment program that runs throughout the year. When it comes to leadership positions, we now divide. We say, if you come in as a president, your deputy must be a lady. And that makes it possible for the boys to come out, whether they are willing or not, and continue empowering them. Every week we have a session where we speak to the boy child differently on responsibilities, on how to speak openly without hurting people, on how to be in charge.
Right.
Because what a boy needs is to be reminded to be in charge.
Nothing further from me, Your Honor.
My lords and ladyships, there are various voices that have been lent to this discourse, with some championing for the boy child to get more attention.
For how can it be that you expect a boy to respect women when we bring them up to disrespect women? When they are growing up, they are not supposed to go near their mother. Is that not true? We tell them not to go to the kitchen. You tell them not to cry like their sisters. You tell them not to be like their mothers. And anytime they have something, they go to the kitchen, you ask them whether they are women. When they cry, you tell them they are crying like a woman. How on earth do you expect these young men who are brought up thinking that a woman is an object of dishonor, then when they grow up, you tell them they are supposed to honor them and to respect them? I think we are asking too much. And therefore, we must change the way we do it. Our culture, which is not good, that we must discard. And as mothers, because this one I call on the mothers, we must rise up in bringing up our boy children. Let them have emotions. Let them cry if they must. Teach them how to speak the problems out. Because right now, we are losing too many.
But, Your Honor, not everyone is of the exact same view on this matter. This court will now hear from Dorothy Otieno. Dorothy, are you of the view that the boy child is not being given the support that he deserves?
I think this is a fallacy. I would say that the boy child is not given opportunity, rights, and privileges because apparently there is a notion that of late the girl child has been given a lot of priority.
You say that you feel that the concerns about the boy child being a bit neglected amid the clamor for more empowerment for the girl child. When you say it's a fallacy, but we have data and reports that point the other direction, don't you feel that are you saying that these reports are not painting a correct picture?
I think I started by giving you some data statistics of saying that achievement of gender equality will take us so many years to achieve. But again, if we don't address the root causes, then we will just be scratching the surface of addressing the issue of, the boy child. I want to state very clearly about the gender stereotype, and I think Mwalimu talked about it, where, the way boys are raised, they're not supposed even to cry, be a man, man up. So those are gender stereotypes that are continuing to hurt the boy child. And in that case, it's not about the girl child being empowered. It's the cultural setting that has put the boy child in a pressure position where he has to act in a certain way, that sometimes he has to forget that he's a human.
So while we understand the challenges, what solution is there to help the boy child to have the value that would be drawn from a father figure, to ensure that, because if the father figure is not there, they're not there. Sometimes it's a matter of separation of the parents, sometimes it's a matter of bereavement, so some matters are beyond the control.
Sure.
So how then do we empower this boy child in such a situation?
I talked about the root causes, and like you say, some matters are beyond control, and that is understandable. But I also want to talk about the matters that are within our control, because we have to look into ways of where we can, rescue the situation. I'm talking about the issue of, parents being able to separate their issues from the children.
So, but do you agree that part of these things falling through the cracks are as a result, to some extent, of a lot of focus on the girl child, to the point where we did not realize that we were letting go of the boy's hand?
I don't think so. This year we're celebrating Maputo Protocol. It's one of the protocols that came about to address the issues of women, and especially the African women and girls. And of course, as Africans, these are issues when you talk about gender stereotypes. The most hurt people are the African society. 20 years down the line, some countries are yet to ratify this protocol.
Do you feel enough is being done to support the boy child?
Enough will be done when men come out and take their position.
Your Honor, so amid all the concerns and reservations, what is the government doing about this? We now invite to the dock Dr. Joyce Mutinda, who is the chairperson of the National Gender Equality Commission. From where you sit, first of all, do you agree that the boy child has suffered some neglect?
Actually, the boy child is not neglected, but there are perceptions in this country. And we realized everybody out there thinks the boy child is being neglected. The perception is actually on the ground, and I'm calling it a perception. What about all these issues that we are seeing that are facing the boy child that have actually raised concern even to very high levels, where people are saying the boy child is actually not getting the support they need? Part of this talk is born out of what we have gone through in the world historically. There was women in development. And therefore, because women in development was basically like adding women in the development agenda, they thought, now we have added women enough for a whole decade. Now we need to add men in development. Now, that is where it is born from. So quite a number of what you see are reactions, because they feel something should be done. But I must say also, in some instances, and I've come across this, the boy child gets neglected. In some instances. It is not everywhere that the boys are discriminated. An example, a life example, is our own education. And I am talking about the basic education. The laws, the policies, the acts, nothing is discriminating anybody. But when it comes to performance, in terms of enrollment in primary schools, both boys and girls are almost at 50-50.
But the girls are a bit more?
No.
Currently?
No, not that I know of. I'm telling you, they are at 50-50, when actually it's sometimes 49 point, the other one being 48 point. And therefore, when it comes to education, this idea that there is a discrimination of the boy child does not arise.
All right, and I just want to read an excerpt from the report that you've mentioned, and the conclusions from the Status of the Boy Child report by NGEK, the 2015 report, begins by saying the assessment concludes that the perception of the boy child is being excluded in the gender equality agenda is valid, while the patriarchal society places a high premium on the boy child, over focus on the girl child through selective programs and interventions was pushing the boy to lose confidence and develop low self-esteem. The perception is there.
It is there.
But the reality is different.
No, the reality is not different.
Okay.
We have various realities as you go from county to county, as you go from sector to sector. And one thing, you'll agree with me, one thing that we found is the policies are there, the laws are there. It is the issue of enforcement and implementation.
Are we seeing a changeover of, long ago it was more of the girl stays home, you have the boy go to school. There are some cases where we are hearing the girl is going to school, the boy will stay home to do some work so that they can make some income. Are we seeing this kind of cases?
I must say there is a change. In those communities where the girls were not going to school, where they would be left at home, that has I wouldn't say fully changed, but when you go to far-flung areas in this country, like the Samburu I talked about, like Mandera, Wajir, and Lamu, you find the girls now are going to school.
How do you reconcile this, where we are having these campaigns which are based on, you know, like you said, perceptions, and some people, for them, it's realities and experiences, but on the other end, we are saying it is not, doesn't seem to be the actual situation.
We need data to inform us for planning. And I want to call on our second lady, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, to walk over and come to NGEC, or call us, we sit round table, so that whatever she wants to do, the interventions are born out of research. The National Gender and Equality Commission is given a function of conducting research or coordinating research on matters gender equality and discrimination.
So you say that, you know, the kind of actions being banned by those who are saying let's support the boy child, for instance, is not based on data.
No.
But you're saying it's a perception, yet you don't have recent data. So aren't you sort of in the same category of pushing for a position that you lack data to back?
Instead of grappling in the dark, getting interventions without knowing what the need is on the ground, let us start where it begins. Let us do the research, let us get the results and the recommendations, and let us draw the interventions.
He walked home high, staggering, but he was low. He received blows from seeds society sowed, staggering. Plus, the things he saw, stuttering when he speaks, it's woe, it's shattering. He feels hollow. He sees dawns a hollow. Hello, boy child. In the race to get the girl out of the back seat, the boy got knocked back a bit, or a lot. Now a load of pressure hangs over his hanging head. He thought they would be equally hard, but feels hushed instead. Affirmative action, to some extent, seems to not be too affirming to men. In the prayer to be equal, do we get to amen before we commit the needs of the men? Many ask, is gender agenda a female one at the expense of the males? Or are these messages unseen, like junk emails? Perchance, are we doing enough to strike a balance? Is there a balance to be struck? For some, it was boys' day out, but now, some boys are just out of it. It cannot be stressed enough that some are depressed, suppressed by the expectations, nuances, and ideologies of society, and yes, the press. Pressed down and denied to be whole, and instead left with a hole in their hearts, battling in a hole while in their heart. The neglected boy-child issue may be a perception, but we need to address the issues that have been mentioned in this news court.